Hey guys, I'm back with another video to teach you how to build websites with React.js. So in this video, we are going to build a very interesting project. In this project, we are going to learn how to build a drop-down menu in React.js using Material UI. So guys, whatever project we are building in this video, I'll leave a link to my GitHub in the description. So if you want access to a code of this video, then you can go to my GitHub and pull that directory from there to practice on your own. So here you can see on the screen, we are going to build this kind of drop down menu where you have various options to select in this menu. So in this menu, you can see that we have many options to select. One is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. And whenever we select a different drop down menu, we see a different results on the page. So I think I don't need to explain how drop down menu work. You might have seen it on many websites. So let's see how this drop down menu is working here. So here if I select a value 10, I will see a value 10 at the bottom. If I select a value 20, then I see 20 here. If I select 30, I see 30. If I select 40, I see 40. So it's a very simple project. We are not only going to learn how to build a drop down menu, but we are also going to learn the fundamentals of React and how React works. So every project we build with React help us to improve our knowledge on this topic. So stay tuned till the end of the video. So guys, here I have a fresh React application that's running on my local host 3001. And I also have a sample project that's running on localhost 3000. We will try and build this project from scratch in our fresh React application. And to begin with, we are going to install the required packages that we are going to need in this project. So in this project, I'm using only one package, that is Material UI. So we can go to the browser and search for Material UI install. So here on the first link, I should be able to find the command that I need to install Material UI into my React application. So I'm going to copy this command from here. I'll go back to the code editor, and here I'll simply paste the command to install Material UI. So now we have all the packages that we need in this project, and we can start building this project from scratch. To begin with, we are going to remove all the default code that we see here, and we can simply say hello world for now and save it. Let's go back to the browser and see how it looks on the front end. So here we can see the hello world application is live and it's running perfectly, and we are going to replace this hello world with a drop down menu that we see in our sample project. And to do this, we are going to first go to the Material UI documentation, and we are going to search Material UI drop down. And here on the first link, we should be able to find the components that we can use from Material UI to build this project very fast without writing much HTML and CSS from our side. So here on this link, you can see there is already a component which is called basic select, and here we can see how this component works. What we are going to do is we are going to learn how to use this component into a React application. So we are going to simply look at the source code from here, and here make sure you have selected JavaScript here. And what we can do is we can simply copy this entire code into our clipboard and put it into a React application. Let's go back to the code editor now. So here in the code editor, what we can do is under the source, we can create a folder called components, and inside this we can create a file called dropdown.js, and we can paste the entire code that we have copied from the Material UI website into this file. Let's save it. So here you can see we have a function called basic select. Now we are going to go and import this function into app.js. So let's import basic select function into app.js. Import basic select from components / dropdown. Let's save it. And now what we can do is we can remove this hello world from here and place our component, which is basic select with the self-closing tag, and let's save it. Let's go back to the application and see how it looks on the front end. So here we can see the component that we have placed from material UI, but it's taking the entire screen space and there is no margin from the top. So we are going to write some CSS here to improve the layout of this project. Go back to the code editor. So here we can see that this component is placed under a class name called app. So we can go to app.css. So here in app.css we can say let's give it a margin top, maybe 10%, and let's give a margin left 10%. Let's give it 20%, and we can also give a margin right, again 20%, and let's save it and see how it looks. So now here you can see that the drop down menu is aligned pretty much in the center of the page. So now we are going to make some customization to this component which we have just directly copied from material UI. So here we are going to, first of all, we are going to change the label that we see here on the drop down menu, and the label says age, but we are going to change it to something else. So let's go back to the code editor, and to change the label we have to look into the component that we copied from material UI. So here you can, if you review the HTML of this component, we can see that there is a tag called input label which says age, and there is also a label that is given here which also says age. So let's change it, and let's change it to drop down, and let's also change the label to drop down. Let's save it and see how it looks. So now you can see that the label has been successfully changed to drop down, and we can see that the default values that we see here under the drop down are 10, 20, 30. So we are going to see how we can customize these values and how we can add more options here under the drop down. Let's go back to the code editor and review the code again. So here in the code, if we review this code, we can see that there is a select tag. Under this there are menu items. So right now we can see there are only 3 menu items, but we can add as many as we want. So let's add more here. Copy this, add 2 more, and let's see, let's make it 40, and let's make another option as 50. Save it. Let's see on the front end. So now we should be able to see 5 options here. These were the default options, 10, 20, 30, and these are the options we recently added. We can add as many options as we need here. Let's compare it to our original project. Here in the original project, if we see, if I select 10, I am able to see the value 10 here, and we need the same effect in our current project. So here when I select 10, how can I see the value here at the bottom? So let's review the code again in the code editor. So here under the select tag, you can notice that there is already a function called handle change. Let's see what is this handle change. If I go to handle change, so whenever the value is changed on the drop down, it is setting the value, setting the age to that value, and age is a state that's already defined in this component. Actually, we can change this variable to drop down because we changed the label of our drop down to drop down. So let's change it to drop down value, and here we can say set drop down value. Now on handle change, I'm going to set drop down value to whatever value we are going to select, that is event.target.value. And here at the bottom, after my drop down, I'm going to place a h1 tag, and inside this h1 I'm going to put a value, that is drop down value. Let's save it. Let's see on the front end. So here we can see some kind of error that age is not defined. Since we changed the name of the variable age to drop down value, so we need to change at all the places. Let's go back to the code. So here let me search for age. So it's coming here. The value is equal to age. Now the value should be equal to drop down value. Let's save it again. Let's go back to the browser. Now we can see that that error is gone. So now if I'm going to select 10, I see 10. If I select 20, I see 20. And if I select 30, I see 30. Now you might be wondering from where these values are coming. So let's go back to the code and review it again. So here in the code, you can see that every menu item has a name which is 10 and its value is 10. So whenever the value is changed on change, what we are doing is we are accessing this value 10 and setting it to the state drop down value. And this is where we are able to see the drop down value under the head tag. So all those values that we see on the screen are coming from these parameters. So now this is not how we put all the options under the drop down, because we might have hundreds of options under the drop down, and this is not the ideal way to add more options here. Let's say I want to add 5 more options. So what I have to do is I have to copy this HTML again and again to add more options. But this is not really the ideal approach when we are building the applications that are production level applications. So let's remove this again, go back to our default, and let's save it. So how we are going to change this code to make it more user friendly and more easier to add more options under the drop down. We don't want to copy this HTML again and again to add more values to our drop down. So what we are going to do here is we are going to create a variable called menu item, which will be an array, and under this array can be objects where we can say name 10, and we can assign a value of 10 to it. And now what we can do is we can copy this object 4 more times, and we can change the values here: 20, 30, 40, and 50. And here also we can change the values to 20, 30, 40, and 50. Let's save it. Now instead of copying these menu tags again and again, what we can do is we can remove all the menu tags here. Let's keep only one, and what we can do, we can loop over the variable that we just created, and for each item in our array we can return this menu item and save it. And let's make this value dynamic. Now this value should be item dot value, and this is the value we are going to put here. So I'm going to put it as item dot value, and here I can say item dot name. So let's save it and see how it looks on the front end. So all we have done is we have removed the duplicate code from here. We have removed all the duplicate menu items from the HTML, and we have created an array, and we can loop over the array and create the same effect by writing only one line of HTML. So let's save it and see it on the front end. So here on the front end, now we can see that this is our application. When I select 10, I see 10. Basically nothing is changed on the front end, but now the code is much more user friendly, and it's much more easier to add more options here. If I need to add, let's say, 5 more options, all I have to do is I have to add more objects to this menu item. I don't have to change anything in my HTML. So all I will do is I will add, let's copy these 5 items back again, place it here, let's save it. Let's see what happens on the front end. So here on the front end, now you can see we have 10 options. We have 10 options here. So this is something which makes our code more user friendly. So this is something we were trying to learn in this video. If you like this video, subscribe to my channel. And if you want to watch more videos on this topic, leave me in the comments. I'll definitely make a video on that. Thank you so much.